Thank you, everyone, for joining our seminar this morning. I'm very pleased to join me on this presentation. We have Paul Glasgow, who's the Managing Director for Marquis, and we have Simon Fern, who is the Product Manager for Marquis. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk to you about the simulation of the business model of dealing in a ransomware attack, and then we're actually going to do a live presentation or simulating a ransomware attack and how to recover from that. So to begin with, I'd like to hand over to Paul, and he'll take us on to the next step. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks very much, John. And it's a major issue. Ransomware is a major issue in the industry right now. And what we're going to do is talk about a little bit of the background, how that's impacting the industry. And what I would say is we're seeing a dramatic rise in ransomware attacks. And some of those are very, very significant and seriously impact the businesses. Very often we see we're aware of the large ones, the ones that affect major broadcasters, and we've seen a number of those. There was another one in Europe a week ago, which caused huge problems. But we see those because they affect the on-air output or the websites or other sort of deliveries. What we don't see, and what we're less aware of, are the attacks at smaller, often privately owned companies. And I would say the rate in those is just as high as anything else, any other vertical. But the media and entertainment market is particularly interesting because the actual data, the data that we wrangle to make the pictures that we produce and people consume, is actually our product. So the ransomware attack can be very, very significant. And as an example of a significant attack, last year, a customer who became a customer of ours because of it, they lost 7 Nexus systems and all the backups in one attack, and the total storage they lost was 1.4 petabytes, and it was an irrecoverable loss. And of course, that represents years of work. And we're not here saying that Avid Nexus is, any less good than any other product that's in the market. It's just the value of the content that's on the system, on the Nexus, is probably more valuable than anything else in the business because it's work in progress. It hasn't yet been delivered, but you may have 3 or 4 weeks of work on a major project, and then it gets destroyed. The other common theme that we're seeing is often loss of the backup systems, and that can be really, really serious because there's no way to go, no way to recover. And we're seeing customers actually, not our customers, paying ransoms to save their business. And it's just, it's very, very painful. I think a lot of organizations are complacent about the threat. They don't really focus on it. And when it happens, the effects are devastating. So what we're doing here is kind of pulling together the feedback that we've had from customers who have been attacked and what that experience looked like and where that takes them. And we've seen, as we said, we've seen some organization pay ransom out, and it's been pretty tough for a lot of people. So what we're hoping to do by this presentation is showing a way of easily mitigating the threat. So anyway, next slide. So what we're going to do is to have a little bit of an attack timeline, the sort of things that go on, the sort of experience that people face when that's being undertaken. But what I want you to do is think about is if this is happening to you, if you are the CTO, a facility head engineer or owner, what would be the consequences to you and how would you feel about it and how would you respond? So if we go to the next slide. I'm no longer Paul Glasgow from Marquis. I'm actually running the First Class Post company, and we're based in LA. We're doing really well. We're pitching on lots of new productions. We're ingesting quite a lot of media each day. We're running 2 shifts because we've got a lot going on. We've got a lot of focus on getting deliveries out on time. Some of the productions are big. They've been in post for a number of weeks. but we're doing great, and we've even got investors looking at investing in the company. Staff are doing really well, and the Avid systems are going really well. And I'm really focused on growing the business. I've never been so busy in my life, but it's absolutely going great. So the place is abuzz. So day 2, not so good. We come into work, there's a major systems outage, and we don't really know what's gone on yet. So our techie guys are having a look. We can't get into the Nexus. We can't log into systems which are on-prem. And unfortunately, we can't make today's production deliveries. So we've already had some clients on the phone, but we don't really want anybody else to know about the outage because we don't want business to walk somewhere else. It's pretty bad. We've received a ransomware demand of $1 million in Bitcoin. It turns out all our Nexus workspaces are encrypted. Our databases are encrypted, so single sign-on doesn't work, and it's proving very, very difficult to do anything about this attack. Unfortunately, yesterday we suggested some freelancers don't turn up, and the rumors about the attack have gone through the freelancer community. Our competitors know about it now as well. And I've reached out to our insurance company, and I've also reached out to the rest of the board to tell them what's going on. And it's worse than I first understood. In fact, the backup is also encrypted. So the backup software took encrypted files on the Nexus and synced those to the backup and overwrote the previous file. So it's an irrecoverable attack. We can't deliver the projects that we've been working on. We'll default on contracts. And we'll also have a major cash flow problem because we've got to make payroll at the end of the month and pay other vendors. I've been to the bank or spoken to my bank manager about a loan, and they're not happy. And there's also the risk is if we pay for the ransomware, that the systems still won't be recovered. We found out the insurance policy only covers equipment recovery and software recovery, not covering the costs of the content that was on the system or the consequential losses of not being able to deliver the projects we've been working on. And it also specifically excludes ransomware. And now we've got a pretty difficult situation where I'm going to have to call our clients and let them know what's going on. So day 5, it's an awful situation. We're basically, stuffed. There's nothing much that we can do except, flatten the whole building, rebuild it again, start projects again. But that's probably going to take a month or two. Very, very difficult. So, what would you do? What decision would you make? So, here's a little survey. Just yes or no, and we'll give the results at the end. So we've talked now about the kind of scenario, and really what we'd like to do now is talk about method of mitigation. But what did we learn from this experience? Well, the first thing is our IT systems didn't protect us. And if you think about the public attacks that you've heard about major broadcasters, they have some of the best IT infrastructure, they have really good IT people, but somehow or other, the malicious attack got into their networks. Insurance more than likely won't cover you unless you have a very, very expensive policy. I think it's unlikely you get covered. The impact on the business is immediate, and if you're trying to deliver projects, you're not going to get paid for them. And of everything else in the business, all the systems, everything, the most business critical components were on the Avid Nexus. And if we could mitigate the risks on that, then we'd have a way forward. And it's a sort of a double whammy, because not only have we lost the work in progress, then we've got the projects that we want to be working on, and then somehow we've got to make up the projects that we've been delivered. So it kind of compounds the problem. And we weren't prepared for the consequences. We were very focused on the work in hand, bidding on projects, keeping clients happy, and we hadn't really prepared for the significant effect. And really, with hindsight, we should have acted early to mitigate the risk. So having said that, what's different about Marquis and protecting Nexus backups? Well, the first thing is that we do that no one else does is we run smart analytics, which enables us to be able to understand at very low level the relationships between workspaces, projects, bins, and media on the Nexus system. And once we know that, for example, we understand what the file should look like that's on the Nexus. So, for example, we will never write an encrypted media file to the backup because we know what it should be like. So there isn't the possibility of encrypting the backup. In the worst case scenario, it's possible to lose the whole facility. So nothing works in the building. And what we've done is we have recovery tools which require no prior knowledge of any of the systems in the facility that you can no longer access. So we can recover a project or a workspace to a different location and pick up and continue the work. The backup of a Nexus, traditionally using traditional tools, is very monolithic. You may take tens of terabytes, hundreds of terabytes, and back those up. It's then very, very difficult just to be able to restore a single project and the associated media and stuff like that. So it could typically take weeks or months to achieve that. What we can do is in the same day, or as Simon will show you shortly, within minutes. And there's no other company in the world that can do that. We provide recovery tools, which makes it very simple to recover either workspaces or projects, and Simon will go into more detail on that. And you can blend recovery strategies. So you may have a mix of on-prem, in cloud, storage. Simon's going to show you S3. And probably the most important thing is not so much about the technology, it's actually mitigating against uninsurable loss and ultimately the survival of the business. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Simon, who'll talk about how the system works, how to configure it, and some real life examples of recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and hello, everyone. So yes, I'll go through our workspace backup and how we can use it for the backup and the restore options. But firstly, just think about the conventional solutions. So a conventional DR solution, a backup, won't have an analysis of the source Nexus system and would have no understanding of how the Avid media and the projects work together. So then effectively blindly back up the data, potentially even if it's been encrypted by ransomware. So there's a great risk of ruining a perfectly good backup. And when it comes to restoration, it will go through that monolithic restoration of data, potentially again, even if it's been encrypted by the ransomware. So your entire system would have to be recovered, and that recovery could go on for weeks or months. And there's no way to access the backup at a project or bin level to go into that lower level of granularity and get out just what you need to get things running quickly. There's also no real flexibility in the restoration system type or the location where you're going to bring things back to. So wouldn't it be better if you had a better way of handling the Avid backups? And this time base it on a backup tool that understands Avid and how Avid works and can intelligently process what needs to be backed up, and also to protect your Avid media from ransomware just by the design of how it works. So we wouldn't be backing up or rebacking up any potentially corrupted media files. We'll be protecting what's in your backup and making sure it's clean and safe. You can also intelligently then manage the contents of the backup and offer fast and flexible restoration options. And our workspace backup tool is the only backup solution specifically designed for Avid systems. When we come to do the backups, the first step we'll always take is to analyze the source Nexus and the workspaces. And with that, we understand the relationship between the media files and the project files. We can then back up all of the files on the workspace, but we'll only ever copy the original Avid media files into the backup. We will never copy encrypted media into that backup. If we see the media file has changed, we will raise that as an error state and pass over it. And this also will include a version control backup of your project files to give you a choice of restore points. On the storage side, you can go to whichever storage location you want to go to. In this example, we're going through to an S3 object storage, and the S3 includes now options for object locking. So you can put an extra level of security on the assets as they go into the storage. And when we do that, we'll set the retention periods per asset. We can also then run regular tidy operations on the backup, where we'll remove any assets that were deleted from the source system after a configured retention period. And we'll give you the flexible job configurations and retention policy management, where you can choose which workspaces to back up and what policies to put on each workspace or each job. Give you lots of tools to go through and set the granularity that you need for your backup configuration. So I'll go through and look at the restore options that we'll then give. So we have two independent recovery tools. We have the workspace restore, which will restore at a workspace level. In that case, we can bring your workspace back, and we can bring it back to the original location or remap the job to a different workspace or a new workspace. And that's an intelligent restore. If the destination is empty, we'll restore the whole workspace. If there's content still in the workspace, and there's just some files that are no longer there or have been cleaned out, we can restore only the missing files. And then we have the project restore, which will restore a chosen version of the project or just a selection of bins from within the project, and can restore it to any location. So we can bring it back to your original system and rebuild the original system, or we can restore that project to a completely different location and allow you to start that project again from a new position. Those are the two areas that I'll show in my demos that are coming up next. Now, both those tools can be used at the same time, so you'll be able to do your restoration of your workspace while also bringing project backs and getting working immediately. So for the demos, I'll go through a quick configuration guide. So I'll show you how to set up the backup job and tidy your backup. And then we'll go through two recovery processes. The first one will bring back lost files into a Interplay PAM managed Nexus, coming from an S3 object storage using the project restore application. And then we'll also show the restoration of a project from that S3 backup to a completely standalone media composer with local storage, and bring it back as a new project. First, though, we'll go through the configuration. And this is a very simple task. All we really have to tell ourselves is where we're going to be creating the backup. In this case, we'll be coming into an S3 object storage, and the configuration details are just standard S3 configuration options, including the buckets that we'll be writing to. You can configure multiple buckets with different rules and different jobs if you want. And then we'll configure the project location. Now, the project location is going to be where the Media Composer project files are held within the system. So when we do the backup, we'll be able to cross-check media files with project files and work out how they're being used in the system. If we find the media files are in use in a project, we'll back up the project files as well. And every time we do the backup, we'll take the new version of the project files, and this gives us that version-controlled project backup, which allows us to go through and give you the options on when we're going to do the restore. And that's just as simple as putting a path into the location of where your project files are held. And then we can build up the backup job. And to do that, we just choose which workspaces to include in the job. I can include as many or as few as we want. So in this case, we'll just add one workspace and have that in the job. And we'll choose where we're going to put that workspace. We'll put that back up. In this case, that's going to go into my object storage as I already had it configured. And then I can choose to exclude certain files or certain folders from the backup to prevent them going into that backup. In this case, we'll just put a file pattern in to prevent any executables being written in. In this case, we know that there'll be no executable files going through into the backup. And then we'll set the recurring pattern that we use. So let's have this go every day of the week, and we'll go in the evening. So set it at 10 o'clock at night. And then when I submit that, that's a scheduled job entered in. So every day now, that system will run a backup for that workspace. Once the backup has been created, we can go for start doing the regular tidy jobs. So we just choose those by choosing the backup and then setting a retention period. Now the retention period will define how long we will hold files in the backup after they have been deleted from the source system. So in this case, once a file has been deleted from the source and we've seen that it's gone, we will remove it from the backup after 14 days. If you're going to S3 object storage and using the object locking function, then we also use that retention period to update the lock that's set on the assets as we go through to increase that moving forward. And we'll just again set when we're going to have this run. So in this case, we'll just run this once a week. And I'll set that to go first thing in the morning. And that will give me my job to tidy that backup. So we'll prevent it from growing just forever. And that's really all I need to do for my configuration. That will now back up that workspace and also manage the workspace. So that workspace will now be protected. Next demo I will show is on the first one of the recovery scenarios. And this one will show the process to recover files from our backup to a Nexus. In this case, I'll show the deletion of some Nexus Essence files from underneath an active Media Composer project. And then we'll use our project restore capability to recover just the missing files from the backed up version of the project. The Nexus workspace and the projects using the media have all been regularly backed up into that S3 object storage. So here we have a very simple project with a sequence and some media files. The files are all held on our Nexus workspace, and as you can see, all of the files are online and they're all playable. So what I'll do now is to simulate a failure by going into a folder that's holding some of these Essence files, and I'll manually delete them. So we'll select a load of files, and I'll just delete them off the Nexus. Now, as soon as I switch back to Media Composer, all of the files have gone offline. So now everything is gone. Now, if you're within a normal system, recovering from this would take a lot of manual work. You'd have to find which Essence files and which Essence atoms have gone, identify all the file names within the project, and start searching through your backup, if you have one, and then try to match those individual file names, and then finding a way of copying each file back into your source system, if you're able to find them. For us, in this case, we'll actually just open our Project Restore application and bring them straight back. So the Project Restore allows us to look into the backup and look into the projects that were captured when that backup ran. The structure is the same structures that we would have found on the source system. So easy to go through and find the projects you're working on and work out which one you want to bring back. You can choose the version to bring back, and you could also choose how much to bring back. In this case, we'll bring the whole project, and we'll pick a version. We'll go for the second to last one. And now we'll just choose where to bring the project back to. In this case, we're going to be recreating it in the existing location. So the project will come back to the original location, and the media will come back to the same workspace. We can always remap to other locations, but in this case, I'm going to be filling in the gaps once I've just created. As soon as we press start, we'll start transferring just the files that are missing back. So those missing files are being written back into my Nexus. And as soon as that completes, I can go back to my Media Composer, and all my files are back online. So it really was that simple to go through and recover. And it really is that easy when you're doing so at a project level. And I didn't even have to restart my Media Composer or close and reopen the project. Everything just came back online immediately. For the next demo, in this case, we will use the same tools. This time we'll now restore an entire project to a completely different system. So we'll show how simple it is to get a project and its media back online, even if the original system is not available. In this case, we're restoring from the same S3 backup, now to a standalone media composer that's running on a laptop in another location. It has the project restore application installed and has been given access to the S3 bucket, but it has no access to the originating Avid system or the original Nexus. Here I have my standalone media composer. It's running on a laptop, it's completely clean, it's not seen the project or the media before. So now I'll open the project restore application and go through the same steps as before. We'll navigate through to the project. We'll find the project we want to work with. And we'll go through the process to bring it back. We can again choose which version to work on, and we can choose how much to bring back. I'm going to bring back the entire project this time. And now we'll write the project files into my local machine, and I will change the media location. So the original workspace is obviously not available, so we'll bring it back to a local workspace. In this case, I'm on a laptop and I just have my C drive available, so we've actually automatically changed the settings. If you had other drives mounted on that local machine, then they would appear in the drop-down list and you could choose those instead. But in this case, we're just working with the C drive. So we'll take that and we'll start the transfer. Now this time we're going to bring back the entire project and we're going to bring back all of the files. So this is a full restore of that project. And this time, as soon as it completes, we can go back to the media composer and refresh my project list. So there's the project file. And if I open that, we'll see all of the media files and the sequences and all the bins, everything's coming back online. So there we go, I have my project and we have all the media online. At this point, the editor can get on and start working and get back to where they were. So you can see how simple and easy it is to use a project-aware backup to get you back online and also working from where you left off. And this is even if the original system or the entire facility is not available anymore. Okay, and that completes my demo, so I'll hand back to Paul.
Thanks, Simon. They get better every time, I have to say. So before we jump into the conclusions, it's worthwhile just talking about those two examples that you saw Simon recovering, the Nexus workspace and projects. I mentioned earlier on a customer who had lost 7 Nexus systems in the backup. They went out to tender back end of last year, and the 2 acid tests they put into the evaluation were those 2 tests. And it was because they'd gone through, a disastrous situation. They knew what the most important things were, and Simon actually did those demos live, as you've just seen, and we're pleased to say we won the business because nobody else could do that. So that was, that was pretty good. So let's get into the conclusions. Right, so I think we'd argue, and I think a lot of people would recognize, if your Avid Nexus is encrypted, goes splat, it's the biggest risk to a facility or a production company. A lot of ransomware attacks are irrecoverable and most likely uninsurable. As Simon also said, that backups tend to be of Avid Nexus tend to be monolithic, which means the recovery speed is really slow. So, the nice thing about what we do is it becomes a business decision about, actually I need to get this project back online because I've got a delivery on Friday, and we can worry about everything else that's going on, but these particular projects are my priority. And as you saw with the demo Simon did, really ultra granular recovery, going down right into sort of individual bins and stuff. And the nice thing was, the last demo Simon showed you, that Media Composer had no knowledge of anything about the project that it was recovering, but it recovered the whole thing, and also version controlled. Traditional DR systems tend not to be that effective against ransomware. Reason for that is very often they're designed to overcome some sort of failure, for example, network or hard drives or power supplies. So you kind of switch over to the backup, but unfortunately it's the backup that also gets hammered by ransomware very often. The DPP event, there was a recent one in London, the leaders briefing. If you haven't heard of it, generally people like the CTO of Sinclair or Viacom or Discovery will show up and present at this event. And their number one priority was around security. And it's just, if it's not on your agenda, it should be right now, because the impact of these attacks are pretty bad. Good news is, if you haven't seen it before, Workspace Backup is really cost effective. You saw how easy it was to use, and it gives you the fastest recovery from a ransomware attack, bar none. If you're a small facility, that's great. It scales right down, and it also scales up to sort of big enterprise scale. So you could literally have 32 terabyte Nexus or have a petabyte Nexus. It'll scale to do all of those. And we speak to a lot of clients who've been, after they've had the attack, and of course they would like to rewind time and do things a bit differently. But please reach out to us and our partners to help us help you. Don't put it off. Don't get distracted by everything that else is going on in the business. It really is a good investment to get on with that now, and we're happy to help with that. So these are the kind of people that use Workspace Backup. It's a small sample, but you can see there's some big studios, big broadcasters, financial organizations, legal organizations, and all of them have invested in Workspace Backup over the years. The original intention was to protect against fire or flood or earthquakes and other disasters. But what it turns out is the analytics in Workspace Backup provides unique protection against a ransomware attack. So with that, I think I'm going to hand the baton on to John.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Simon, for an excellent presentation. Now, during that presentation, we took a poll. Thank you for everyone participating in that. And it's given us some very interesting statistics throughout the day and through the other presentations we've done. And we asked you, would you pay the ransom? And in EMEA, we had 25% of the people said they would have ended up paying the ransom. In our East Coast and South America presentation we did earlier on today, 56% of them said they would have paid the ransom. And today, 40% of you have said you would have ended up paying the ransom. And this was very interesting for us, because in our research ahead of this, we looked at all of the ransomware attacks that have gone on that are very well documented, or that have admitted to it. And it's been very surprising how many people have paid out ransom. And the ransom is typically targeted according to the size of the organization. So it can be as low as $5,000, or it could be as much as tens of millions of dollars. And we've seen tens of millions of dollars being paid out in ransom. And we've interpreted that these larger corporations who have very strong IT, very strong network, very strong archive solutions, who could recover, are measuring the time for them to recover represents such a loss in business that it's actually financially better for them to pay the ransom than to try and to recover from that. That was an important interpretation for us, and obviously is one of the key parts of our presentation, of being able to bring you back to business as quickly as possible following that attack. So thank you for participating. So that was the results of that. We've had a few questions asked, so what I'd like to do is air a few of those. If I don't answer your question, then we will be posting an update later on. But a few questions to go through, and let me just look those up again. So Paul, let's start with one for you, if that's all right. One of the questions is confidence that this works with Nexus today and the future, and also where are we with supporting Nexus in the cloud?
Oh, very good. Okay, so so I think what's gone in the past is quite a good indicator of what may happen in the future. So this application is Avid certified, which means we're in their labs, they're in our labs, so we make sure that all the releases are compliant and work, efficiently and effectively. We've got a huge install base, which we can't let a beat drop. So we're very actively developing the product. And so I see no end to that. It's a very, very important area for us. I think the other question was about Nexus in the cloud and edit on demand. We have, it's possible to use workspace backup in that environment. Also, our other products such as project parking and also Workspace Sync, which is a companion product with this, with something called Photon Flight, which is outside of the scope of today, but it's basically a way of securely synchronizing a Nexus on the ground with an Avid Edit on Demand environment in the cloud, and we can do some clever things in there. So we're actively developing, these products for use in that environment.
Thank you, Paul. Simon, a question for you, and actually this question also came up in other seminars today, but I think it's worth airing. We presented our solution working with a Nexus solution. What do we have a solution that supports an edit share solution with Avid Media Spaces?
Yes, that would be absolutely fine. We're working at a level where it's all based around the understanding of the files and the projects. So the control system that's on top of it will be fine in either case. So we'll work with both Avid Control and the people who are effectively pretending to be Avid at the control level.
Cool, thank you, Simon. And Simon, sorry, continuing with you, if we may. Our presentation was showing us working with localized S3 storage. Are we restricted to that, or are there other ways that we can actually plan our backup strategy?
So the backup location is a free choice. You can choose wherever to go from a standalone disk up to the cloud providers. It really just comes down to what kind of resilience or performance you're looking for. The S3 is used as an example because of the number of people who've implemented it recently, and also some of the extra options it gives for the protection. The example I gave in this one was the options within the S3 protocol to have the object locking enabled, which just gives an extra level of protection at an asset level. But it's a free choice based around whatever you want to work with.
Thank you. I've got one. I'm going to bring one last question. We just had a live question come in, and that is, what is the hardware requirements to run this software? So what is that setup?
So the application or the system is running on a Windows server. The actual spec of the server is fairly limited. It's fairly lightweight. The main processing requirement for your performance is going to be network performance to get the speed out of the transfers. So it's a Windows server or VM with fairly lightweight specifications. We can give more details to those if you want.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon. I think I'm going to wrap up there. I won't go through all of the questions. We will be posting this video online, and you will all get an email with those details. It will also have questions and answers in there for your information. If you'd like to see more about our workspace backup, or you'd like a trial of our software, please do not hesitate to contact us. But you can contact us through the website or through our email addresses, etc. So please don't hesitate to do that. And we'll be in contact with more information in the near future and more details about our next seminar. Thank you very much for attending, everyone. Thank you.